Hello and welcome, Inspired Podcast community. This is your new episode. My name is Caroline, and my today's guest is Stephanie Fee. And I'm so happy that she said yes to our interview. Hello, and how are you doing today?
Hi, Caroline. Thank you for having me here today. I'm so happy you reached out, and I'm doing great. Great. A lot of
Oh,
good things happening. So,
yes, I can feel it. I'm 9 hours ahead of you in terms of time zone. And so the future is very, very bright. I can tell you that already. And now I would like to introduce you to the audience. Okay. You are the founder of the Wild Larynx, a creative brain trust for nonfiction authors. As a ghostwriter, developmental narrative artist, and author strategist, you empower entrepreneurs and high performers to bring their memoirs, personal development, and business books to life, guiding them from concept to manuscript completion. Welcome to the Inspired Podcast, Stephanie Fee.
what a nice intro. Thank you.
Oh my goodness. And you recognize yourself. So it is you. And I'm so happy about that. So, my first question to you is, what key elements do you believe are essential for crafting a powerful memoir that resonates with readers?
Yes, that's a really wonderful question. The first thing that I talk to authors about is not the structure, or it's not the rules, it's not formalities, it's matters of the heart. So to me, in order to write and craft and build something that's going to really move the audience and engage them fully, the author has to be engaged fully, emotionally, and really from a place of raw and deep vulnerability. This is not easy for most people, even the most open authors. Having someone help them go deeper, think uh, not about the audience while they're sharing their story with me while we do narrative sessions, but to think about their story and their feelings and embodying that story and really forget all the business or how many books are going to be sold or any of that stuff, to leave that behind and fully focus on the depth at which they'll tell the story. And so to me, that's the prime driver of what is the raw material for something that then we can craft into a well formed story. So I would say really that's the majority of it, and it's my job to help guide them so that they don't feel like they have to think about anything other than that, other than getting what I always say is stored in our systems, these stories we hold back. Maybe it's stored in our body, stored in our minds, maybe it's stored in their computer, right? But to get that out to someone that they trust first, and that's really beautiful. That's what I call narrative art, and we all have it. It's just a matter of getting into the feeling of it.
Wow, I love what you just shared. So now I understand, and I never thought of it that way. So that means, in order to tell a really inspiring story, what I understood is you have to connect to your heart first. So you open up, you also talked about vulnerability, to open up completely and then to let it flow and not think about all the structure or the strategies, structure, order, all the left brain stuff, so to say. So you connect to your heart first, and then you give it life, right?
That's right. That's
Hmm.
right. And you give it an authentic life, a real life. And when you're able to really, spill your guts, right, to someone else in private like that first, Then we work on, okay, what do you mean by this or that? And we really get into getting to the heart of what you mean, what you are trying to say. But first, it starts with not having to worry about how you say it and just telling me in this place of trust or a partner that you choose, then really massaging out what you mean and how you want that message to move out into the world. But again, more from a place of yourself and less of a place of trying to think too hard about the audience, because that can block, in my experience, that blocks people from full expression because it makes us nervous, right? I think part of writer's block is just worrying what other people think, right? And when we get out of that and release ourselves from that, first in private is very nice because it's a protective, space that you're not judged in that space. You get to work out all these stories and find your voice in the process. So yes, very important.
Yes, okay, this is also what I witnessed when when I jumped into a book project. It was un unplanned, so to say. I just said yes, and the order or the assignment was write 2,000 words, so one chapter, and I thought, okay, I can do this. I have time. But the whole process of discovering the story and letting it flow and allowing also to, and what you said is so important about the judgment and not being distracted, so to say, what other people think about or what the future reader will think about you, because you don't know what the future reader is like yet.
That's right. That's right. And you're not speaking to everyone, right? You're speaking to a set audience. And when you get those people who really resonate with you and your story, you have a message that can be very expansive. I think you lose that core audience when you try to make it, too many authors will try to please everyone, or they're afraid to say what they really want to say because they don't want to turn anyone off, quote unquote, right? I think the moment you turn people off is the moment you turn the right people on. And that, if someone doesn't like, if you have a critic, you actually have something valuable. Because if you don't have any critics, that means you kind of have something shallow and maybe not engaging and written with fear rather than uh, courage, right? So I know that that's kind of a funny way to put it, but if you write with fear, you're going to constantly be trying to make everyone happy rather than actually finding your voice, saying what you have to say, let the critics, kind of move around you and invite in this real audience that's going to come with you, and they're going to hear you and they're going to understand you like you've never been understood before. But it doesn't come without also the people who aren't going to come with you or just don't read the book. Maybe, those things happen, right? You want your family to read the book or you want your friends to read the book. They don't read the book. That's okay. You're not talking to everyone. So yeah, there's so much to the process, and it's really difficult. It's easier said than done, right? You know that from going through the process that you went through. Did you feel did you feel apprehensive at all during that process with the 2,000 words, like having those deadlines, or how did that feel? Now I'm interviewing you.
Yeah, it's okay because for me the biggest thing was to say yes to an English project. I just said yes. Oh, I never done this before. I have to do this. I always wanted to become an international best-selling author, and this is what they offered. And so I said yes, and I thought it's easy because I already published in German. I don't have a problem with that. And then I was sitting there. I was on a cruise ship, This is why I thought, oh, I have time. I can write on my cruise. And then it was so, because I think it was because of what you said. What will the other people think? And so I was writing for other people, not for myself. And yeah, I had to learn this, but I'm happy. So I would advise to everyone to just start or to say yes to something, even if you don't know who's your or if one person is going to read your book at all. I should so the experience or the journey is the purpose, so to say. So I love your question. Thank you so much. And also everything you shared with us is so helpful now for people who want to, yeah, or who are afraid to start. Yes, just start. And of course, I have another question for you. It is, how do you help entrepreneurs translate their personal stories into impactful non-fiction books?
This is a great challenge that I'm tasked with. I've been tasked with often. So the interesting thing about entrepreneurs is that they come with their stories and their ideas, and they're usually very fired up about that. Like they're really happy and thrilled to be putting this book together. Soon after we start the personal story aspect, which I will say, not every book has a lot of the author's personal stories. Maybe it's instead stories of, people that they've served somehow in their company, and some have more. It kind of depends on, you know, the story, right? Maybe actually the stories of their clients or case studies or something is more appropriate and more appealing and more engaging in the context of their business book. So that's one aspect. But when they integrate their personal stories, there's a point of friction where the thing that comes up is, am I talking about myself too much? Do I sound, everyone's using the word narcissist, and do I sound like I have too big of an ego? Those kinds of things. And I tell them exactly what I talked to a memoir client about, exactly what we just talked about with, if you go deep and you share from a place of creating value for yourself in getting this story out, it will make a difference in your business. People will connect with you on a whole different level. The other part of business books is that it's not the same storytelling. It's not the same stories that will be told as in a personal memoir necessarily. Maybe there's some slight crossover, but more than likely, you're probably not going to share, certain very intimate things, right, with at home or something that would be shared in a memoir. You might share a little bit of that, but what you might share are your stories with building your business and how difficult it was, as an example, or how you went broke and had nothing before you, catapulted to success. So it's not, it's a courage gap is what I call it. So I'm like, you're just going through this period of self-doubt, which entrepreneurs are very courageous people, very adventurous people. Part of that is because they're usually also trying to prove something, right? Like they're very high performing, and so here it's like you don't have to prove anything because you've already done so much. So what we have to do is get you to a place of creating a movement with your story, not a prove book. If a prove book, people will read it and they will be like, this person just wants to talk about how great they are. That gets boring, makes the reader feel a bit like they are never going to be able to be like this person, and it's not really the best look, I think. So when you do it with, the act of service to yourself, that translates into the audience. So we just got to bridge that gap together. And then, and this is my final piece to the entrepreneur part, then they start to, this is in my experience, and I encourage my clients, start to tell stories on your presentations or your speaking engagements. Get up, start with a story, and see how that translates, the otherwise boring presentation where people then come up to you at the end and say, I didn't know about it, but that was a great story. This helps give them proof and evidence that, in fact, when they tell stories, this is very useful, and it gives them credibility in a different way than their expertise gives them, because people will trust you, like you, see you as a whole person. That's also very nice for them, because they no longer have to only be the CEO. They can also be seen, the scene CEO, right? Fully. So yeah. So that's how I help them work through that.
Wow, I absolutely love this. Thank you so much for sharing. And I never heard this before. Create value for yourself. I mean, this is so logical as well. Of course, I heard about write the book for yourself, or yeah, like not thinking about the readers, of course, and this as a concept. But create value is is something different. And when you talked about the entrepreneurs as well, what I heard was when they write a book intentionally to, yeah, about their business as like a marketing book or something, then someone told me recently that only 10 pages are read by
Mm-hmm.
the buyers, or when you give it to someone, we don't know, only 10 pages. So when I imagine your work telling the real story or being authentic, or they are authentic, then telling the whole story as well, and then when it is like, yeah, nice to read, then you will finish it as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wow, it's so amazing. Thank you so much. I have to re-listen to this episode again. There were so many nuggets already. And of course, I have another question for you. What common challenges do authors face when developing their manuscripts, and how do you help them overcome these hurdles? And we talked about the writer's blockages already. Blocks.
Yeah. Writer's block. I'm not a believer in writer's block. I think it's just this thing that people talk about to escape actually doing the work. I think that it's very convenient for us to blame writer's block, this thing that, I mean, there's science behind some of the aspects of how the brain will works in terms of writing and creative flow and things like that. So I'm not countering that, but what I'm saying is the more we talk about it, the more it becomes a problem. So I don't talk about that with authors. I talk about how we're going to create this work together. Um, Courage is a big deal. Vulnerability. There's different parts of the process. The starting out, I only work with people who are what I call ready. What does that mean? They're going to write this book, come, whatever comes in their way, they are going to write this book, even if they're scared, even if they're worried about the outcomes. We'll work through all of that. But I work with people who are fired up and they're ready. I don't talk anyone into writing their book, because it has to be an act of like self, it's just got to be self-directed act first. That's how I work. Then if they're in that mindset, any challenge, which they will come, they will get through any challenge, and we can work together to make sure they have peace of mind. So sometimes it's how does this process work? What are all the elements of being an author? Well, if I told you that in one full swoop, you'd probably be completely overwhelmed. So I work through, and it depends on how they want to publish their book. You know, which route do they want to take? What kind of a book are they creating? And so it's anything from, a lot of it is those courage gaps. And then also there's a financial worry too. I'm investing in this process. So what am I going to get out of it? So I have to reframe with them. It is an investment, not a cost. Everything is an investment. It's an investment, and you're going to get the return. The deeper you invest emotionally, the deeper you invest. Actually, the data is that authors who do invest financially see a bigger return. This is for nonfiction book authors, probably because when you put skin in the game and you have a partner and you have a strategy, then you have confidence that, in fact, when this book is published and you put it out into the world, you're going to want to promote this book, be excited about helping your publisher, working alongside your publisher, and really promoting this message. If it's done right, that's the goal. If you're excited about promoting this message, this book is your lifelong. It is out in the world, and it will live forever. So how are you going to raise it? How are you going to nurture it and bring it along with you in your speaking engagements? Build a course around it. Use it as the long form content for your marketing material, for your LinkedIn articles, whatever it is. Repurpose everything that you put into that book. This is not just a book. It's like a funnel to all these. It's a link to all these possibilities. So we have to talk about possibilities to get over the blocks. And every author is different in terms of, the challenges that come up. But there's solutions to every single one of them. They just have to want to work through that. Yes. So.
Wow, thank you so much. I see this. So there's another book, and maybe you know this. It's called "The Obstacle is the Way." So you go through this, of course, and you help your clients as well to succeed and to get the book published. So thank you so much for sharing. I have one last question for you. It is about, where can people find you when they want to reach out after listening to this episode?
Great. You can find me on my website. So it's the Wild WILD Larynx LARYNX.com. And from there, you can schedule a consultation. Soon I'll have a link up to apply and tell me a little bit about yourself before we talk. And otherwise on Instagram at the Wild Larynx, and I'm Stephanie Lynn P.
So exciting. Thank you so much. Please reach out to Stephanie. She's amazing. She has information not many people have, and she's willing to share and help you get your book out, but only if you are ready to do it, no matter what. You said this, no matter what comes in the way, it is possible. And I can share, I was ready to drop that whole project last year because but I had the people to help me as well. But it's not my mother language. So it was another excuse. You talked about excuses. These are only excuses. There is no writer block. If you have the right people, the right coach, or someone who supports you, then you will follow through, of course, and you have your own book. I love that. I love books. You see this? I love writing as well. Thank you so much for our interview. And now it's time for your final thoughts to the audience, please.
Thank you so much. My final thoughts would be to reflect back what you just said. Don't go it alone. No author goes it alone. You need a team. You need the right team. Interview people, make sure they're the right team, look up the questions to ask, and be diligent about who you choose, and really tune into what you feel, but also check them out and make sure that where your money goes, the energy and the work is going to flow. That is super important, but don't go it alone, because then your book is just going to stay stored in your body, and otherwise you get to get it out into the world. So thanks for mentioning that. I think that's really important.
Thank you. It was a great interview.
Thanks for having me.
And see you in the next episode.